Hello, everyone. Welcome to another BRAP. It's Saturday, June. I almost said June, July 5th. Actually, where this gentleman sits, he's sitting ahead of time here. It's July 6th over there. So,
Correct.
which means that humanity has lived to see another day, which means that Falky's here. Falky's always great to see you. Thank you for joining us.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me. Yeah, we made it. We made it to Sunday. The sun is rising and it's cold but it's good. It's good to be here. I see the craziness of the 4th of July. Most people have survived that, so congratulations.
Yeah, no, I got to be honest with you. I was a little annoyed last night when there's fireworks going off at 11 o'clock in the evening in my neighborhood. I'm like, look, people, like, I get it. Everyone is, you know, uh, celebrating the birth of the U.S. I get it. But please don't shoot fireworks off at 11 at night when I'm trying to sleep. That's a bit annoying. Um,
You win one game and they carry on forever, don't they?
yeah, exactly. But no, you know what, Falky? It's interesting. I've made it down under recently in Death Stranding 2. I'm currently
Ah,
working on connecting Australia to the Chiral network.
it's a big place, isn't it?
Oh yeah, and I'm waiting to run into. I was hoping, Falky, you might have a cameo in Death Stranding 2, but I don't think that's the case.
No, I didn't get the tap for that one.
Yeah. So, but no, Falky, great having you on. Really appreciate your time. And what a time to have you back on too, because this has been a pretty eventful week in terms of the gaming industry news related. We had layoffs at Xbox, Microsoft in general. It's interesting. We were Logic and I were having this conversation earlier today about AI, and he was on a Gaming Circle podcast earlier this morning, which was a great show, great conversation uh, between the panel there. And he kind of gave folks some career advice about being flexible and reading the tea leaves of when there's layoffs.
Yep.
Um, and he said, oh, the first round of layoffs is typically the underperformers, and then after that, it's a bit more. The layoffs have to do probably more with a bit more of the strategic shift of the organization, and then aligning, your headcount with that shift, right? Making sure you have the right people in
Mm.
place, and then letting go others who maybe don't who don't fit within whatever shift that is that you're doing. So, um, and it's interesting, Falky. Like I want to get your. I know this is not a topic a topic I mentioned we discussed today, but just interested to get your perspective on the implementation of AI and how that's impacting FTE headcount. I'm seeing it in my own company, Falky, where the writing's on the wall. It
Mm.
is very much. We want people that are flexible. We want people that are going to continually evolve. Evolve by meaning, learn new skill sets. But
Yeah.
also, people are willing and open to incorporate AI into their day to day. Considering the investments of we use Copilot, but the investments of AI that we have made in Copilot, Chat GPT. So, what are your thoughts on that, Falky, and how AI is reshaping the workforce, and maybe it's impacting longer impact in terms of game development?
Yeah. So general workforce, it's interesting. Whilst AI is provided as I don't know, a sweetener to the deal, so to speak, or where it's like Copilot and ChatGPT and those ones where it's easy to access and it doesn't cost. It's no massive additional cost. It has massive benefits to some organizations. If from as simple as taking minutes during meetings to setting up mail distribution lists and following up on key items, doing database analysis work, producing reports. There's a heap of benefits it has in the back office. In terms of engaging with customers, it's probably not quite there yet, but you could use it in some circumstances to do customer call center work and all that sort of stuff. Um, it'd certainly be better than the recorded messages that we've been dealing with for the last 20 years, but there's benefits there. The challenge is its accuracy still is an issue, and its ability to think laterally can be constrained at times, depending on what you're talking about. But I've seen seen firsthand, not like seen videos, but played with firsthand. Some of the ones in China where they can do property market analysis for investment portfolios within parameters, and it can have 20-page reports and find you properties and give you information on funding options and all that sort of stuff locally and internationally in a matter of minutes, where it would normally take a team of 30 people or 40 people probably a month to pull that data together. So that's pretty powerful stuff. But then it's like when they automate production lines, they go from people using hand tools to robots. Someone's got to look after this stuff. Someone's got to make sure it keeps working, and someone's got to make sure the data is correct and relevant. So the changing of the skill set, so to speak, in the area of accounting and finance and data analytics is less around being able to pull that data together and then produce the reports and verifying that the reports are accurate. So there's a higher understanding skill set that's required to oversee the AI. That means that there's an erosion there of the base level understanding of how this stuff comes together. You know, people like yourself and myself, we can look at reports and we instantly know what's behind them all. We know what's built into them. We
Mhm.
can read between
Mhm.
these and read between the lines. If you've got someone straight out of university who's never done a day's work database work in their life, they'll look at it and they'll have no idea what they're looking at. And yet the AI will have pulled it together, and these people will be coming into the workforce expected to understand whether this is correct or not. So
Mhm.
that's where the big challenge is getting people to the point of understanding what they're looking at and how they can use AI to better assist
Yeah.
them in roles rather than AI replacing their roles. And it has
Mhm.
gaming, we've spoken about this plenty of times. The grunt work, repetitive coding can be taken from 18 months of a team of 20 or 30 people spending 18 months to do just the coding to get up the like the world map, or the level designs and all that sort of stuff without the artwork. You could take that group of people and the other 30 or 40 working on the artwork designs and the other 20 or 30 working on the combat designs and all that sort of stuff. You could probably collapse those entire teams into one team of 20 people instead of 100 people to just go through and do the fine tuning and oversight and use the AI tool to do all that grunt work coding. But you still need people who know what they're looking at to go in there and fix it and fine tune it and find the bugs. And you still need a QA team to do all that work. It's not going to replace people. It's just going to, like the tools that have come through recently, where these small 20 and 30 person teams can produce games like Claire Obscurian, where their primary nucleus of the team is overseeing everything and they're bringing contractors in to pinch hit on certain stuff. That is very, very much value for money operating as a project, rather than having 200 or 300 people in a studio just sort of drifting along. It's going to be an impressive tool to use, but it's not going to be something that replaces people. And for organizations who are looking at this going, we're going to lean heavily into it to replace thousands of people and allow it to just do the work for us, either they've got a really powerful AI that they haven't shown us, or they're going to have a massive issue with their quality. And I was talking on a show earlier today. We had a brief chat about this. If you take out your QA team and you take out your knowledge base around how these things work, and you replace the whole lot with AI, you're going to have these massive issues in quality. Massive issues in quality. Um, does it mean that there is less opportunity in the gaming development area? I don't think so. I think it's still a growing area. It's still got plenty of money in there to fund good ideas, but you need to have really good ideas because of the oversaturation of what's in there. But I mean, look, we just came out of June, and there was 500 and something new games shown and spoken about in those shows. Over 500, and from small indie games all the way through to the top end AAA games. So if you can find your level and you can find some funding and you can get into it, well, by all means, get into it. And if the AI tools help you get there faster with a shorter development time, that's great. And if you combine that, so for example, you combine an AI functionality tools, if they have them available for Unreal Engine 5, with PSSR or FSR4, whichever version you want to use, you can cut down your development time by more than 50%. And that's at a AAA game level. You can actually carve 50% of your time to go from empty space, blank space, to finished game by 50%. So that's the power that these things have, but they aren't cheap in gaming development. In general business, it's nothing. As I said, we get Copilot thrown in for free with our Microsoft deals, or we can
Yeah,
access
we do
ChatGPT for
too. Yeah.
free, or you can use some of the if you're able to use some of the Chinese ones, which are stupidly powerful. You don't have to pay for them; they're free to access at the moment. But as soon as everyone starts using it and they put it behind the paywall, it's not going to be cheap. But in gaming development, it's already behind a paywall, and to access it is expensive. To run these centers is stupid. I was saying before, chatting with Calirex. Some of these AI data centers, they're talking about hooking up full-size nuclear power stations just to power the data center. That's a stupid amount of energy that they're
By the
chewing
way,
up.
Falky, this is when Skynet becomes self-aware and kills humanity.
Yeah,
So
I mean, we won't care. We'll be dead. But you know, for those that are left fighting on, good luck. Have fun.
yes.
Shoot for the eyes. Aim for the eyes. Um, the challenge though is think about how much people complain about online stores. So the Steam store, the PSN store. Oh, it's stupid. It shouldn't be so expensive to do digital distribution. It is because of the cost associated with housing the data and the warehousing for it and running the storefronts. It's got to live somewhere to be able to download it from somewhere. And yeah, you're just downloading your version or your copy of it, but there's all that back of house stuff that they have to do in secure data centers for the financial transactions. And they've got to do that in every region. And you've got all these other requirements for that. Think about that times 100 when you start talking about using AI for game development and AI for game distributions and AI in games, like real-time AI in games, where you're filling out lobbies with bots that are controlled by an AI or something like that. It's phenomenal amount of expense associated with this, and therein lies I suppose the scales, the tipping point on the scales. Is it more cost effective for me running a game development studio to lean into the AI and then bring in an really expensive, highly knowledgeable expert to oversee to make sure the AI is doing the right job? Or would it be cheaper for me to employ half a dozen developers who know what they're doing and have got the accuracy and are going to get it right, and bring in a lower costing Q? And I don't mean lower costing as in they're undervalued. It's just they cost less than than the high end expert. Someone in QA to do the game test for me. Which one of those two things is going to be more cost effective? And that's the question that a lot of these teams are going to have to ask themselves. While the access to the AI tools is cheap and effectively free, but the accuracy is an issue, that will probably be the option going forward for the smaller teams, or to speed up game development, or to try and cut back on game development time. Particularly if the AI is going to do the upscaling for the resolution and the frame rates and all that sort of stuff within the PC or the console itself, and they don't have to develop at 1440 or 1080 or whatever it is that they're working as a baseline. They can just do the stuff at 240p or whatever it is, and it'll upscale it itself. That'll save 12 to 18 months at some of those top end AAAs. But it comes at a cost. And as soon as they really lean into it and they all get into it, and then you have these massive data centers required, and of course, technology doesn't work 100% of the time. It tends to not work most of the time, to be honest. As soon as those things start to cost money, as we've seen with the cloud server stuff, it starts to demand investment, and it starts to demand maintenance, and it starts to demand energy consumption. All of a sudden those costs have got to be shared somewhere, and it will all flow through to the end user. And when it flows through to the end user, every time someone touches it, they add a percentage onto it to make their mark. So if it's costing if it costs $1 per unit of additional energy consumption, by the time it gets to the end user, if 5 people have touched it, it'll be $4 per unit. So it's just things to consider on the broader piece rather than,
Mhm.
hey, AI is going to replace all these people. That's great. But, look at some of those data centers, mate. Like, yeah, you're not going to have devs working, but someone's got to maintain that stuff.
Mhm.
Someone's got to work it. Think about the cable management alone, and you've
Mhm.
got when you've got to pull blades out and you've got to do the overhaul work and you've got to do servicing work. Think about the
Okay.
energy it will take just
How
to
about
cool the damn thing.
the housing? You have to house these data centers somewhere.
Oh, the fucking heat they will throw off. Could you imagine the heat that they will throw off?
Falky,
It is
uh,
insane.
I Hollywood has warned us about this, so I'll leave that at that. Hollywood has warned us about AI. And it's funny you mentioned energy. I mean, wasn't that kind of the premise behind the Matrix that the man marveled at their own creation of AI? Remember, Morpheus says that, and then we
Yeah.
get turned into batteries because AI realizes, well, wait a minute, I have this unlimited source of energy and humans. It's more cost efficient for AI to do that
Oh,
to put us in
it
capsules.
yeah. I mean, it is phenomenal the amount of, I don't know, forewarning that we
Yeah,
we tell ourselves, but the humanity constantly finds a way to make life, in the attempt to make life better, we make life worse.
that's actually a great point. We humanity tends to step on the rake a bit.
Yeah,
Speaking of
a
yeah,
lot.
go ahead. He said a lot. Yeah, no, we do. That's the unfortunate part. For all the good we do, there's some very bad things that we do.
Yes.
Um, hold on a second. Speaking of stepping on the rake, I don't know, Falky. I shouldn't. I know you tell me not to tune out the noise, Falky. I know you. That's your the wisdom that you bestow upon me to turn off the noise, to not pay attention to certain things. But when I see stuff like this, Falky,
Which stuff?
if you could look at the screen here,
Nice move, Hellbox. Yeah.
but read the title here. This is how this post would look if it came from an unbiased gamer who's just posting about games. So Christopher Dring, for those who don't know what Christopher Dring is, a journalist. He used to write for GamesIndustry.biz. He has his own
He has a show.
um his own show and he has his own website. Now, if this is what bothers me about this post from Diego, I know Diego. He actually used to do some um years ago, probably about 10 years ago, did some graphic work for BRAP. And I guess my issue is this. Is that look like know your audience, like know your like who this person and what this person does. They analyze data, they discuss trends as relates to the gaming industry. I don't think I don't see anything out of bounds of what Christopher Dring is saying here. And this ties into the bigger issue of people being overly emotionally invested in whatever platform it is they game on rather than being emotionally invested in the
Oh,
actual content being the software.
didn't so it in 2 consecutive days on in those 2 days. On the first day, we had the news coming through about all the layoffs at Microsoft, and people lost their collective minds. And then an announcement that Helldivers 2 was going to Xbox, and people lost their collective minds worse about that than thousands of people getting sacked out of Xbox and out of Microsoft gaming. It was phenomenal the amount of dumb comments being, and genuinely dumb, ill-informed comments people were making on all social media platforms, on their podcasts, carrying on like absolute pork chops about this one game and extrapolating it out to being, oh, that's it, the whole slate's, and all this other stuff, devaluing the brand and all this. I just, the stupidity of some people, of a lot of people actually, the stupidity that they have because they don't understand how business works or how any industry business works, but they're adamant. And I've seen people doing the whole, that's it. I'm not spending another cent on PlayStation. I'm going to sell my PlayStation. I'm going to get rid of this. They've lost me as a customer. All this grandstanding virtual signaling bullshit. Like, good for you, but I'm pretty sure that when we get to October, you'll be front of line for Ghost of Yotei. I'm pretty sure that, on the same day they announced Helldivers 2, the studio Arrowhead announced that Helldivers 2 was going to Xbox, that PlayStation came out and said, hey, we've got another timed exclusive coming to our platform from a Chinese studio. Okay, cool. No uproar about that, though. Come on. This whole, it's the end. It's the end. I would like to point out this isn't the first time that a game published that was originally IP owned and published by PlayStation has gone to Xbox. And it's certainly not the first time in recent history that it's happened. It's happened before. It's happened as far back as the PS3 era, where games that were exclusives on PlayStation, made by PlayStation Studios, have landed on an Xbox. I mean, where was this uproar when they put MLB The Show on Xbox? And the defense was, PlayStation got told they had to, they lose the license. They didn't have to. They were asked to, and it was fine. I mean, the thing that has irritated me the most is the lack of knowledge and comprehension that individuals have towards these sort of decisions. And this is coming, and not just me who said this, plenty of people have said this. It's just coming well after, at an investors call, the leadership at PlayStation and Sony said, we will, for our live service games, do it on a case-by-case basis and assess it from there. And they have. And what's the problem here? Honestly, what's the problem?
I mean,
if
Falky,
you
Herman Hall.
Yeah, if you as a gaming fan or a consumer of gaming, it's your hobby, your passion, whatever you want to call it, if you are going to take it that this announcement by Arrowhead to take a game that is 18 months old, and Xbox players have been screaming to get their hands on this. It's not like they're putting something over there that's got no demand. They have been screaming for this game because their own first-party studios can't provide them anything even close to this. Xbox players have been screaming for this game, and they finally got it. And I am happy for them. I'm genuinely happy for them. This thing is mad fun. They are going to love it. They're going to get on there and have a great time. And what is Xbox best known for? It's multiplayer support. They love multiplayer games, and they've got nothing to play. So, great. I am really, really happy for them to get their hands on a game like this, which is going to be great, mad fun for them. But if you think that this means it's the end of PlayStation, and I'm sorry you're going to get demonetized for this, BRAP, you are a fucking moron.
Well, I think that's a little bit dialed down from, I think, what you had posted on Twitter, Falky.
The rusty fish hook. Yeah.
Yes. But to your point about leadership, Herman Hulse has talked about live service games needing to exist on multiple platforms to have access to a larger engagement of or larger. I try to remember everything. Something to the effect of live service games need to exist on platforms, multiple platforms, to have access to a larger player base, a larger engaged player base, and by bringing it to Xbox, that would accomplish that. What Herman Hulse had mentioned. I think this is a few years ago. He may have mentioned this. I have to go back and pull that comment up. But to your point, Falky, the leadership at Sony's actually basically said that, hey, this is something they would do. This isn't anything necessarily coming out of left field. I'm not surprised Helldivers 2 because of those two things that Harmon Halls, and then to your point, what PlayStation leadership had mentioned. But I also don't think that this is some grand pivot of sorts for PlayStation, and that has been the argument or the conversation that I've been listening to and reading. People saying that wait a minute, this is how Xbox started. It started with one game, and it started with one game on PC, and then it became day and date on PC, and then it started at four games on PlayStation and Nintendo, and now it's more games on PlayStation, Nintendo. Therefore PlayStation is heading down this route too. And I think it's important, Falcon. We talked about this before the show. I think it's very important, right? You talked about this context and nuance, right? Before
Yeah,
we went live.
it's
I think
extremely important.
we need to unpack the circumstances here, that these are two companies in the gaming industry that are at different positions in the market and have vastly different challenges in that market, right? We know
Yes.
what the challenges are at Xbox. They had issues selling hardware. They've had issues selling software, right? Like we can't lose sight of that. Again, and people are going to get upset. I don't know why people get upset when you say that. That's just the reality of the matter. We know this based on their own financials. We know that based on data that we have available to us about their inability to sell software, declining hardware. We know that Nintendo and PlayStation don't have those types of challenges. Now, I'm not saying here that PlayStation or Nintendo are infallible, where they don't have challenges, but the challenges are a bit different here. The why or the motivation behind doing things at PlayStation will probably be a little bit different than Xbox, especially in the case of bringing some of their games over to other platforms. And I mentioned this, and I'll give you the mic here in just a second, Falky. I mentioned this earlier quite a bit on Twitter because I want people to understand. Everyone say, "Oh, here we go. PlayStation's a third-party publisher too." Yes, they are a publisher, but let's. I think we need to look at the publishing philosophies between both, because they're not the same. PlayStation still values a platform first. Their philosophy still platforms first, platform centric, right?
Yeah.
Xbox is platform agnostic. Those are very different philosophies from a publishing perspective that people tend to overlook. So, Falky, if you wouldn't mind, could you provide some additional nuance and context to this? Just looking at the fact that these companies are Falky's chomping at the bit. No, but I mean, like let's add some nuance and context, because the motivations, the reasoning, the reasons why these companies are putting certain games on platforms are not inherently the same.
No, they're not even close. So, Helldivers 2, absolute breakout success. No one expected it to be that good. No one. And I could just about guarantee you there was no chance this thing, from internal expectations, was ever going to be considered to go on any other platforms other than PC and PlayStation. Because of its success and because of the demand from Xbox players, and not the online community, but actual gamers over there, and the feedback that they've provided, and the current circumstances surrounding what the strategy is, as you said, Herman has said it, and Holst is, not Holst, Totoki said it, and others have said it in the past. For a live service game to be truly not successful, but to have long legs on it, you need to be able to access all the players all the time. It's not going to work having it restricted to one exclusive console point for them to be able to get that, right? And they've said day and date, console and PC, because that makes sense. They got a really good relationship with Steam. They do really well out of that so far, and that partnership's working well. There is a gap in the gaming offerings, put it that way, over on Xbox. And PlayStation is not compromising anything here, because you've still got to pay full price for the game, and you still got to have a paid for Game Pass core subscription to be able to play it online. So now we will see if those that really wanted this game on Xbox will actually stump up the cash for it. Because as soon as it got announced, everyone's, why isn't it Game Pass? Why isn't it in Game Pass? Well, this is your opportunity to put your money where your mouth is and actually support something that you've been screaming for. Because if this doesn't work, they won't do it again. They're not just doing something for the sake of one outcome. They are testing things all the time over at PlayStation and Sony. They are constantly prodding markets to see what the outcomes will be. They tried the live service thing and they couldn't get the quality up there, so they shit canned a heap of those games. The few that have made it out, this being the first one in that list of 10 that they spoke about, actually did really well. Well, what's the harm in going on over there and seeing if it's actually going to do any good? Next thing it'll be, well, with everyone goes one game going, the whole slate's going. No, the whole slate's not going because they've already said on multiple occasions the focus is live service games, case by case. We'll put them where it makes sense. And here's an example of where it makes sense. They just released information about the next Destiny 2 DLC, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember what it's called, sorry. In the last couple of days, they've announced, or the last week or so, they've announced what that's going to be.
Okay,
They got,
Pucky, I don't mean to interrupt you, but this is kind of the dialogue. I don't know if you see this here up on the screen, but this is the dialogue that I'm referring to. Herman also said just because some games came to PC doesn't mean all of them. But he switched up then as well. And then this is the false equivalency here, where James is now saying Xbox said the same thing. He said, and then he says case by case, but when money calls, corps answer. That's James. That's an oversimplification of the complexities around the economics of game development and Sony's PlayStation's overall business strategy.
Yeah, there's two.
So, do you mind addressing that, Falky?
You
Yeah,
can't
go ahead,
you can't in one breath say that they need to be rigid and they can't be flexible, and then the next breath say that their competitors can be as flexible as they like. If you want context and nuance around the back end of this, PlayStation does not have any trouble selling games at all, none whatsoever. They release a first party or second party game and they sell relatively well. And Helldivers 2 has made a shitload of money. But does that mean it's going to sell well on Xbox? Does that mean that it's going to sell well in that ecosystem? Not
We don't know.
necessarily.
We don't
We
know.
don't know. But it's not the ecosystem, it's the consumer base on that ecosystem. The consumer base over at Xbox might have bought this on Steam because they were pushed to go to PC. But if there's a Windows version of this, they might be playing a Windows version of it on PC. We don't know. PlayStation doesn't know, but they want to find out. So instead of sending a game over there, well, I shouldn't say instead of sending a game over there, they've relented or consented to allowing Arrowhead and supported them with Nexus, fair enough, to send games over that in that direction. And this is the game. Now, has anyone said that in any official capacity that more than this game is going? No.
Hey, Falky,
If you were going to send second party games over there, don't you think Rise of the Ronin and Stellar Blade would be there already?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a multitude of games they could have sent over there to do this with instead. The reason they're doing it is because they said with live service they were going to do it. If there's no evidence to the contrary on that. Now, if this thing makes a crap load of money for them, I doubt it will. But if this thing makes a crap load of money for them, well, then fine. Send the rest of them over there and make a crap load more money. I don't care. As long as people have the ability to play games, that's fine. Why does it matter? Well, if it's 2, 3, or 4 years later, that's fine. If you want to sit over there and wait for things to pop up that far off later, that's your choice. But if people say, "Oh, devalues PlayStation," if you want to play the game day one, or you want to play the game within the first 6 months, where else are you going to get it? There's no guarantee that things are going to end up on PC, and there's no guarantee that it's going to end up over on Xbox. Why isn't Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart available to play on Xbox? What other Insomniac games from the PlayStation funded are available to play on Xbox? What other PlayStation games other than their live service games are currently available to play on Xbox? History is no guarantee of future performance, but it's a damn good indicator, isn't it?
Falky, I want to say something. You talked about, like, you raised a question of whether or not that it's not about the ecosystem, it's about the consumer in the ecosystem. It's a great point. And to James Thomas saying case by case, but when money calls, corpse answer. Again, James, oversimplification. Because, and I'll tell you why. To Falky's point, the consumer in the Xbox ecosystem is probably a bit different than the consumer on Nintendo and PlayStation. And why is that? Because of something called Game Pass, right? There's some data out there. Actually, I think the founder of Arcane, who's now at Lorien, is had some criticism of Game Pass, which I'm not going to get into today. You talk about the economics of Game Pass, but my point is, it may not even make sense for them to put something on Xbox. And it's funny, Logic was saying this. We had this conversation earlier. Logic made reference, and I hope I'm not misquoting here, but still to the effect, like, if it may not make sense for Sony to, because everyone talks about money revenue, but it's about profitability, right? It's about those,
Exactly.
and if you put a game on Xbox and it makes 5 cents of profitability, is that 5 cents worth the time and investment in putting that game over? Maybe not, right? So I think that there needs to be a little bit of more nuance and context here, James. And you're asking if Helldivers makes money, you don't think more will come? Absolutely. I think that if Sony believes that it makes sense for them to release live service games, which, and I won't argue this point either, they're certainly more open, because I think this is a fair point to bring up regarding PlayStation. They're certainly more open than they have been in previous years of bringing out titles that they publish or license IP to other platforms. We see that on PC. But we also need to understand the motives behind that too. As they have said, that one of the reasons why they decided to bring games to PC is to try to attract more people to the PlayStation hardware. To your point, Falky, of using that time exclusivity of having that game release day one on PlayStation hardware, having those people experience that may not be in the PlayStation ecosystem right now on PC, that may be a motivator for them to say, you know what, I love these titles. I don't want to wait 6 months or a year, whatever the case is. I want to enjoy these titles day one.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that
And
is
and it just popped up in the comments there. They need to have exclusives. They have exclusives. They have a shitload of exclusives. There are games that are locked on PlayStation that you will not ever get off PlayStation. And yet people are running around making comments going, "Oh, well, it's doom and gloom. It's the end of the world because they're definitely going to do the same thing as Xbox because they have to do that, and people need to do this." Cool, great, excellent. That's your 5 words coming out of your mouth. That's great. Have fun, but if you want to get it day one, it's the same Xbox ROG Ally bullshit all over again with Steam coming to an Xbox and then we'll play PlayStation games on it. If you want to wait, great, good for you. If you don't want to wait, the only place you're going to get them day one is on that console. If you're happy to wait on a maybe, that's your choice. But don't tell everybody else that it's the end of the world because of your personal preference and choice, because they might have a very different way of consuming their entertainment. And it's a completely individualistic point that everyone consumes their entertainment in different ways. If you want if you want to have a massive amount of game options at your disposal and you love indie games, don't buy a PlayStation. Go and get a PC and go get Steam. That thing's got a phenomenal amount of indie games on it. Got a phenomenal amount more games going to Steam than PlayStation. PlayStation will add 1,000 games in a year. Nintendo will do 600. Steam will do 15,000. It's completely different perspectives. But
mhm.
if you want to play, and I've seen people say, that's it, I'm not ever buying another PlayStation again because their first party is garbage. Their first party's only ever put out 2 to 3 games a year for the last 20 years. And why is that a surprise to people now? but it'll always be on the console first. They're not going to release them on exclusively on PC first or exclusive, which they've done in the past. I might point out they have released a game on PC first and then brought it to their console, but no one talks about that. And then certainly not going to put it on a competing platform with Nintendo or Xbox before they put it on their own platform. Now, the live service stuff is a small segment of their whole gaming library and their development pathway forward. But if you're sitting there thinking that Ghost of Yotei is going to be on Xbox and PC and everything else on day one, I'd put your money where your mouth is and start and let me know how much you want to bet on that. Because I'll gladly take it up. Same thing with Wolverine and Venom and Intergalactic and all the rest of them that are coming down the pipeline from their major first-party studios, which are the tentpole studios with their main piece. They looked at putting Gran Turismo 7 on PC and then they decided not to.
By the way, those tentpole titles, those studios you mentioned, those are their key product differentiators in the market. That is their brand identity. That is their pitch to you. This is why you should buy a PlayStation, right? I just want to address something here real quick. James Thompson, so you're saying people are weak to FOMO? Absolutely. People are weak to FOMO. I mean,
the whole entertainment industry relies on that.
yes. I mean,
that's the premise.
Nike relies on that. You ever heard of impulse buying, James? That is part of FOMO. It is a psychological lever that corporations, companies will pull to get people to engage and buy their products. Absolutely, 110%. I forgot what I was saying now because I was talking about. What was I saying? Oh, so those are their product differentiators. Again, like I don't. This idea that this pivot is a 1-to-1 to Xbox. It's just it. I don't know why people do this. It drives me nuts because it isn't. Because again, look at the health of both business, both the Xbox business and the PlayStation business. Falky, you always talk about people tend to misconstrue what Totoki said about profit margins, things like that. The health of the overall PlayStation business, because we always point to that. AAA games are unsustainable. Totoki wants higher profit margins. He wants to reduce operational costs and create more operational efficiency. Falky, if you're a finance guy, finance people want that every day. You could be knocking it out of the park with your investors, and they'll still figure something else that needs to be streamlined or something that could increase your profit margins. Maybe I shouldn't stereotype all bean counters like that, Falky, but that just tends to be my experience in dealing with bean counters. But it's not a 1-to-1 here. Again, because these companies, their position in the market and how they perform in the market are just vastly different. I mean, PlayStation hasn't had issues moving hardware or moving software.
They have no issues selling anything.
Yeah. I mean, look at the. I'm sorry if I can look at the PlayStation Portal. It's one of the most successful peripheral devices this generation, and we know that based on data from like Circana, or formerly known as NPD.
Yep.
You were saying, Five. Sorry, I interrupted. Yeah, go ahead.
No, so I just saw a comment pop up in here, and I'm trying not to turn this into a Q&A because there's a couple of other things I want to touch on before I have to head off. Where a super chat there, $2. Thank you for the super chat. 2 games since 2020 locked on PS5, nothing exclusive. And then they correct themselves later. So, oh no, sorry, 3 games on PS5. Okay, cool. How many of those games that were released on PS5 were there for a period of time only available on that console? And I ask that question because I'll give you this as a thought bubble. Rise of the Ronin and Stellar Blade, both we'll say successful second party deals, were exclusive on the console, and then they went to PC. 12, 18 months after release, 2 years after release, they went to PC. A technique that is used by certain industries, businesses within industries, is to fund something, launch it to market, suck the money out of it in a 12 to 18 month period, and then release it back to whoever the second party was to do whatever they like with it, assuming that they hit certain targets. So Helldivers being ridiculously more successful than what anyone thought it could do, PlayStation has sucked a huge amount of money out of that, right? Big dollars. It was so successful that a lot of people forgot this. Tencent bought 15% of Arrowhead. Now, if Tencent said, we as 15% owners have some say in what wants to be done, just approach PlayStation and say, hey, I know you've got a stake in the rights of this game. Arrowhead wants to take it over to Xbox. We think that's a great idea. We just need your okay to do it. What's PlayStation going to say? They're going to say no? Or they're going to say, sure, do whatever you like, but we're not paying for it because we've already got all our money out of this. And we're going to get a trailing revenue stream out of this anyway. We're not having to fund it. Huh. And people say it was a spreadsheet exercise. That's a spreadsheet exercise which gets a yes every day of the week and twice on Sundays. No investment and return for there's money coming in. Fuck yeah, I'll have some of that. But back to the other two, Rise of the Ronin and Stellar Blade, once they'd had their sales success and then they've released it over to PC, they've taken the big chunk of cash that's going to come for it. Because the trailing tail when you put it somewhere else isn't huge. And it doesn't matter what it is that you do with it. Even these remasters and remakes, there's still not a huge run on it. So if you've got, and the market now is vastly different to 15, 20 years ago, which everyone says, oh, the PlayStation, Xbox of old are all different. Of course they're friggin' different because the industry's shifted and the whole consumption market's changed. If you can produce a game, get it to market, have the first 3 to 4 months go absolutely gangbusters, and then it tails off and you get a long leading tail on it, fine. But you've made all your money from your investment in the second party deal up here. You cut it loose and you let it do whatever it does, whatever they like with it, whoever owns it, because it's in existence and it's not going to cost you anything to let it go. They did it with Kojima with Death Stranding. PlayStation had ownership of that IP and a couple of other things of his. They made their cash off it. They're not going to muck around doing suck the well dry stuff and spending dollars to get minimal returns. Totoki said, we want this. That's what they're chasing. You get that by big investment, big dollar returns, and you don't chase the tail. That's how you maintain those levels. You don't fumble around looking for the dollars and cents. You're just chasing the big bills, the big greenbacks. And when you cut it loose and you give it back to them or you sell it back to them, which is what they did with Kojima, here it is, we'll sell it back to you. And they sold a few other IPs that they weren't using back to other second and third party studios as well. We'll sell it back to you. We've got our cash. We made our bundle. We're off to do something else. Give us a call if you got something new in the pipeline. That's why PlayStation is this massive second and third party team called XDev and PlayStation Indie Engagement and all that, rolling around the world at every convention you can find. They're there looking at all these smaller games. Do you want to come to PlayStation? You want to come to PlayStation? There are games that are on PlayStation that are only on PlayStation. You can't find them on any other platform. So to say that there's only 2 or 3 exclusively on PlayStation is false because you haven't checked the whole library, obviously. But what's the problem with what they're doing as a business? There are thousands of businesses across hundreds of industries that do that technique. We fund the setup, we get the cash at the front end, we take our bank, we go away, they've got something that they can take and do what they like with. And particularly in gaming, how is it a bad thing? Everyone says, "Oh, I'm a gamer at heart. I'm a full gamer. I'm not a Twitter player. I'm a full gamer." If other people are able to play this game, what's the problem? It's not. Is your PlayStation worth less today than it was 3 days ago at GameStop? No. Does it change the games that are coming down the pipeline? No.
Falky,
and this is the thing that pissed me off about this is where's the devaluation coming from? Because all those that are pronouncing that they are adamant that this is going to devalue the PlayStation brand have no clue about brand valuation and how that works.
Falky, I don't disagree with you. That's the flip side of this that I've seen too. One is, this is the PlayStation is following down the same path as Xbox. The reasoning is the same, right? The other is, oh, I'm getting rid of my PlayStation 5. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, why? I don't see this as deval. Now, if God of War or The Last of Us was to come out on Xbox or a rival like Nintendo Switch, right? Day and date, different conversation. I might agree with that devaluation of the platform for some people. But I also don't agree with that Helldivers 2 is necessarily devalues the PlayStation 5 or there's a PlayStation ecosystem in general. The way and some people have suggested that. So I saw somebody say this is my last PlayStation 5. I'm like, really? Over one game? Like, come on.
This James Thomas. The
Yes.
journey and the path is different, but the destinations for both these platforms are the same. What destination are you referring to? Because if you're saying the destination is everyone goes third party, you completely miss what the meaning of third party is. You can't just change the meaning of a term or a phrase to suit your argument.
James, I saw James in another podcast today, and he argued with me that that Mao is more valuable than ARPU.
Fuck off.
So wait, Falky, hold on. let's apologize for Falky. He gets a bit riled up here, but no, I mean he did say that. So yeah, I don't think the destinations are necessarily both the same for both of these platforms. Again, James, for the reasons I mentioned earlier, their positions in the market, and the fact that again, PlayStation is a platform. Their business is platform centric. That's their core. That's PlayStation's core focus, James. They prioritize exclusive, high quality first party titles to help drive PlayStation hardware sales to get people in that ecosystem. Okay. Yes, there is some select games or expansion, as Falky talked about, with some of the titles that they're involved with. But I don't think that this Helldivers 2, I see people love to bring up Horizon and Legos. The Lego licensing of Horizon as proof positive that they're going in that direction. Again, I would probably agree with that if they are if some of the core or some of their pillars, the core pillars of their tentpole franchises were going day and date on rival platforms, and that just isn't happening. And there doesn't see any indication that that's going to happen as it stands today.
Yep.
Based on what leadership has said.
Yeah. Well, sorry, he's pinging me, so and he's
Falky,
annoying me. So I'm going to respond.
Falky, you can't curse at the guest, sir.
If he thought I was swearing at him, he's grossly mistaken. If the comment was MAU is more important than ARPU, Xbox has got, what, 500 million MAU?
So roughly, yes.
PlayStation's got 124. Then how come PlayStation's got a lot more revenue and thus a higher ARPU, far higher ARPU than what Xbox has got? And if they're going to the same place, which is day and date across all platforms, which even Xbox hasn't said is definitely happening with their first party games, not that they got many coming out, then the business models would be vastly different than what they are now. If the purpose of this supposed pathway is that they're all going to converge in one spot, which again, they're saying is day and date, can you show me in any of their business models, business plans, or future forecasts where they have said that? And if the idea then is that, it's just the vibe that I'm getting, like somebody else is saying in the chat, it's just the vibe that I'm getting, or it's how I'm feeling about it. Well, that's your personal opinion. That's fine. Then voice it as your personal opinion. But don't run around telling other people that it's the be all and end all, because it's not in anyone's best interest, let alone these companies, to do that. And saying, here's an education for you, James, for those of us who are Australian, we tend to say fuck off a lot when we don't agree with a comment. It doesn't mean that we're telling the person to fuck off. But if you want me to tell you to go somewhere, I'm more than happy to do that.
On that note, I want to welcome Gabby Forte. Forte, how are you,
Yo,
sir?
What is up?
Forte, let me just tell you something. It is an honor every time you grace us with your presence, good sir.
Oh man, don't do that.
Unlike your co-host, who shall remain nameless. But go ahead, Forte. How are you today?
Man, they can't be doing that, man. Throw shade at that man like that. No, what's going on, man? How you been?
I gotta throw shade at Slobo anytime I can, because Slobo's from the DMV. We have something called Jonin, and I'm sure Slobo knows what I'm referring to. So
yeah.
We're always roasting people here in the DMV. So it's ingrained in our culture here at the DMV.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's going on, Forte?
Nothing, man. Just listening to the conversation. Been a wild week this week, but you know how it is.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts about this, Forte?
Wait, hold on 1 second. My wife.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll talk to him. Yeah, no switch comes sealed.
Okay. He's all right. Yeah, sorry about that. Jago 6 is like silence. That's a great point, B Money. B Money says,
yeah, no switch comes sealed. They're all open.
B Money says, as soon as a
when
hardcore, I got to mute Forte here. I think he's, I don't know if he's at work. As soon as the hardcore realize they don't run the industry more, the better the conversations will be. Casual industry, and that's why that's who these companies are going after. That's a great point, B Money. Now, Forte, are you back? Still on the phone?
Did you tap him on the shoulder to come in here and calm me down? Did you?
No, I did. He just showed up. He may have. Yeah, Falky, I'm glad. You know, it's interesting. You talked about Australian culture. That's actually a good
man.
point.
My man is sitting there is like, this switch look like it's been open. I'm like, bro, Nintendo doesn't seal their systems for some strange reason.
Oh my goodness.
Well,
are you at work right now, Forte?
No, I'm at home. My associate called me.
Why bother sealing the systems when you can just brick them?
Oh, well, listen. We're not gonna. First of all, we're not gonna do that today. I'm not gonna do that today. Nintendo out here living their best life. They out here doing wrong to people, but there's more people out here buying that system than ever before. Craziness too.
So it's selling like as Game Life likes to say, it's selling bonga right now.
I'll put it this way: I've gotten 6 restocks since the day they came out, maybe more than that, maybe like 7 or 8 restocks, and like little quantities, like 15 here, 20 there. And every time I get them, they're going that same day.
Yeah, I just want to address James bringing up Horizon Legos. I
what was your? Oh yeah, go ahead, answer that question.
I don't disagree, James, that PlayStation is more open than they have been in previous years to selectively releasing titles or doing some kind of cross pollination of their taking some of their IPs and partnering with Lego like that with the Lego license, but I don't. That doesn't signal what I think you're suggesting. It signals.
What is you suggesting?
That PlayStation is going the path of of being platform agnostic with their publishing philosophy. I don't agree with that.
So, I guess I'll I guess I'll go with that in that direction. I agree with you. I agree with you to an extent, but the biggest thing that I will say is the waters are murkier than they were 3 days ago. They're actually even more murky than they were over 2 years ago. You know, the moment PlayStation, you know, it's been this it's been like this slight move in a direction that has been completely opposite of what they've been doing for years. Ever since they started putting their games on PC, that was like the first domino. It was 3 years, then it was 2. Now it's like almost every year. It's like a year waiting between them. It could get lower than that. I mean, I think some games have been lower than that, but they already went in that direction. They started putting games on other platforms like Nintendo Switch with Horizon. That is something they'd never done before. They actually started doing that. Now that's just one game. Now we have a game that's published by you coming to another platform. The only thing I will say is we can't 100% say that won't be the case, because if I remember correctly, when it was just 3 years ago, or even 5 years when Xbox started doing actually they started doing this a long time, 2016, 2015, when they started doing Play Anywhere and they started doing PC games, and Gears of War and stuff was one of the very first ones with Quantum Break that went over to PC. Shannon Loftus at the time was head of what's the name and came out and said that there was no crossover between PC and what's the name and console. And you'll still see more of the exclusives come first, will be on Xbox, and then we would make games that made sense go to PC. And that was 7 years ago, or it's almost 10 years ago at this point. So the maturation process of stuff changing moment to moment, year to year. And I know Xbox is like the extreme case because they completely bought into that philosophy as to where they're pretty much de facto third party at this point. I'm just saying, with them putting games on Xbox now, it's kind of interesting that you really don't know what could happen going forward. We can have the belief that, you know, they wouldn't do that, but we can't 100% say that no more, because just like we said when Xbox came out and put those 4 games, and they said we're just talking about 4 games, and they put those 4 games on, they were coming to PlayStation. Everybody said, okay, that's it. At this point, we didn't know if everything was coming. It took like a year and a half to like come to the conclusion that everything was coming. But we pretty much threw out the window like, okay, nothing is sacred at Xbox anymore, because once you decide to do one, that's all it takes to break the dam. It may take 4 years from now. It may take 5 to get the next one. But the thing is, we can't 100% say no to it anymore like we can with like stuff like Nintendo. Like Nintendo's the only one that's out there that's fully exclusive. Like, I think they did the one game where they did Mario Run, which was on console. Which is on phones. But outside of that one thing, they've never put their stuff anywhere else, to the point where even in Fortnite, they won't even let Samus be on Fortnite because they don't want people playing as her on a different platform that's not a place that's not a Nintendo platform. So they won't even let it be on the game because of that type of thought that they have around their exclusivities and stuff. So that is what true exclusivity is at this point now. And PlayStation has kind of edged themselves into a situation where we can believe that they're not going to do it, but the veil has been taken off, and now we have to question if it is going to be that direction. Now, I agree more with you than anybody else that we still have to wait and see and take the wait and see approach, but we can't say it won't happen anymore, because this has officially happened in the last week now, or the last 3 days.
So Forte, so I don't disagree with you. No, none of us knows 100% what's going to happen.
Yeah, nobody knows. We don't know. We're not in the board. We're not in the boardrooms.
I don't think they even know.
But
it's such a fluid circumstance at the moment. I don't think that they even know beyond the top.
I agree.
That's 100%.
No, because think about it. That's where Xbox is right now. Microsoft knows where they're going, but Xbox themselves don't know what the full direction is at this point.
I think we need to be careful, and I'm not saying you're doing this, Forte, but
no, go ahead.
A lot of what I've seen, my only pushback to this is people comparing this as an equivalency to what Microsoft's done. I heard you mention like Xbox, the 4 games, and then Xbox, when they went to PC the first time. The reasons for those pivots, or why Xbox chose to go that route,
I think they're different reasons.
Different than PlayStation. And
they're different.
People are definitely conflating the two. So none of us have a crystal ball. I'm not going to sit there and say we're never going to see a God of War on Nintendo Switch or an Xbox. Who knows? Maybe that happens. Like you said, like Falky and you both said, Forte, the industry is fluent, things change. But what I do know today, though, is that isn't their publishing philosophy right now. Could that change? Sure. Could it stay the same? Sure. Could they dip their toes in the pool a bit?
Well,
sure.
That's only because they haven't released a single player game like God of War or something like that over there. But I can easily see like perfect, like until Gears E-Day comes out, we haven't even really seen well, I'll take that back. We have, because Forza's over there. So that was the first tentpole game to officially show up on a PlayStation platform at this point. But I think the biggest thing is, and like I said, once again, I agree with you, but Xbox did it out of necessity because nobody was buying their games, which I also think is part of the doing that they had when they basically trained their player base that they didn't have to buy games because of Game Pass. So I feel like they kind of double-edged themselves in a situation where they wanted services to be the main driver, but in the way of them doing that, they convinced their own player base that you don't have to support us by buying our games. So it was like a double-edged sword that kind of led them to where they can't get rid of Game Pass because that's literally the lifeblood of the services that they have that basically holds Xbox up at this point. But they still need to, sell games and make money, and that's why they're putting their games in other places. PlayStation doesn't have that problem because they sell consoles even when there's not games to buy, because the majority still rules. Most people still are playing games that aren't exclusive games. People can buy most of the games that people play on PlayStation, they can play on an Xbox, but they're just used to playing them on a PlayStation, and that's the preferred platform. That's where they stay at. So now it's a situation where you just went through the last 2 or 3 years where PlayStation is going through, I want to say, identity crisis, because they jumped into a situation that they weren't ready to jump into. Hence why they purchased Bungie to oversee that with their live service initiative. That it was something that wasn't thought out early enough. It was something that they felt like they had to capitalize on quick due to like what was happening in the market, and it bit them in the butt. Hence why they canceled a bunch. That's why they canceled the game. They had a game release and then they canceled it right after that. And then you see even their tentpole games, like, from Naughty Dog, that game's on ice right now, along with some other stuff. So they have to, it's like right now they're trying to figure out a way of getting back to being, not saying they're not profitable, because they still make a lot of money from all of the games that are still releasing on their platform.
I have some concerns about the Bungie acquisition, but that's another conversation.
Listen. Bungie has found a way to cut themselves into a lot of different situations over the course of like my time of playing the game. Like I always told people that Activision wasn't the problem. It was Bungie, because Bungie didn't know how to live up to deadlines. I told this, no, when Bungie left Activision, I said Activision is probably the happiest in the world.
I remember you saying that.
Because Bungie don't know how to live up to their timelines. They don't know how to do this. They bleed money and all this other stuff. And guess what's happening now? On top of the plagiarism stuff.
They're getting absolutely billed by Sony because they couldn't hit a deadline.
And it was the same thing that Activision told them when they were coming out. Release cadence, they wanted them to come out with a mainline expansion every other year, and they wanted them to come out with a sequel to the game every 3 years. And guess what? They didn't want to do that, because Activision had them on this tight schedule that they were trying to do. And guess what? They had and this is the funny thing is, they had support from ancillary studios. They had Raven Software's helping them. High Moon Studio helped them make games. It wasn't just Bungie. They had the best that Bungie ever did when it came to Destiny is when they had help from Activision. Now, I'm not saying the game didn't like thrive and stuff after the fact, because it was mostly due to the community supporting them, because they wanted to see Bungie go off on their own.
I just opened Pandora's box by bringing up Bungie.
Yeah, you did. But that's what I'm trying to say. But now Bungie is like a albatross around their neck right now, because they don't know what they want to do. They can't close. Listen, they can't close that studio. They can't.
No, I don't think they can.
Can't. As much as they probably want to, they can't.
Falky,
because of the amount of money they spent in it. And they can't have, and as much as Bungie is more of in charge and is known as the procurator of what Marathon is, it's still owned. It's still owned by Sony, and they can't have a game like that as much as they probably want to cancel it because of the amount of money and time and investment it's going to take to get that game to the point where it's going to be in a way that it's released and people don't remember all the garbage that happened with it. It's unthinkable. So this is a move to like, this is part of that move, I think. And like you said, this is one thing, the last thing I'll say.
Yeah.
You were talking about earlier about the development line, the timeline and developing of a game. This didn't just pop up when it came to Helldivers. They've been working on this for quite some time. So this game has probably been in the works for Xbox. Who knows, for at least probably a year, maybe a year and a half. Shoot, it could have been a development at the same exact time. I also think it's just a simple fact that Xbox at this point has finally convinced PlayStation that there's no threat there anymore. It's like it's not to say that they're willing to just say all of our games are going to go over there. I don't think that's the case, but I don't think they see them in the same light as when Sean Layton or Andrew House was there, where it was a battle between the two, and you would never see our game over there, or we wouldn't even be in the same room with each other. Forte, that is gone at this point.
I said that earlier, and I think that's a fair point to bring up, that PlayStation's openness to bring some of their stuff over to like Nintendo, PC, now Xbox, that certainly has evolved from what you just described. I 110% agree.
100% evolved from that.
But they've also, I think they've also, Falk, you correct me here, you've paid a little more attention to what the C-suite has said, but I think that's also been communicated down from the C-suite during these investor calls prior to the release of Helldivers 2, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, that's correct.
So I do what Forte, I love this conversation around Bungie. And I know it's not a topic, but because you're here, I do think, I'm interested to get Falky's perspective on this. I don't think they can get rid of Bungie, Forte. I think you mentioned that point.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I do think though, if they miss deadlines, or if they're not getting that ROI from Bungie, it is full takeover. Like, we're gonna get our hands on this whole thing now, and the Bungie of old is gone. Because I've seen this with acquisitions.
I as much as you say that you think that's going to happen, I think it's already happened.
What do you think, Falky? Being the financial expert here, when acquisitions go the way they're supposed to, what does the acquiring company do?
Well, we've seen it. They got rid of senior leadership. They're gone. They didn't get their bonus payouts, so PlayStation saved some money there. They kicked the leadership out. They got rid of a heap of dead wood out of it. They carved 200 and something devs out of Bungie and put them into other studios and sat them in XDev and stuck them in other places, and they carved a heap out and sent them over to be in Blundell's team and work with his, what is it, Black Dog Studio, whatever the hell he calls it. So they already gutted it, and then they left a few hundred devs with some new leadership there to work on Destiny 2 to suck as much out of that well as they can. And so, and they've got Edge of Fate's coming out soon. So they've obviously been working on something there. And as long as they continue to roll stuff out for Destiny 2, and they're trying to get as many legs out of that to get some ROI on that investment, they'll just keep rolling that to a degree to keep that coming in. I did read somewhere that even though the pre-orders are down on Edge of Fate compared to the final shape, there's still over 5 million pre-orders. So that's a lot of money. And that studio ain't going nowhere if they can operate.
Did you say there's 5 million pre-orders for the new DLC?
Something like over 5 million pre-orders for the final shape. Not the final shape, for the Edge of Fate.
That's a lot of pre-orders.
Yeah. So that's a lot of money.
One of the 5 million.
Who? I haven't pre-ordered.
No, I don't know either. I was just saying, I'd read it from...
I definitely ain't pre-ordered.
Yeah. So that,
that was... Sir Gabby's saying that's for the mobile game.
No, I read it for Edge of Fate, and that was from a tracking, one of those I don't want to say it's a tracking company like Sakana. It was a tracking metric that they'd released from a what do you call them? Digital sales aggregator. That across PC and console, there'd been something like 5 million pre-orders for it. Now that might be wrong, but that's, even if it's half that, a couple of million pre-orders is still pretty decent. But then, you know, if you've only got a couple hundred devs and they're pumping out these sort of expansion packs and DLC, that makes it a profitable venture. So they've turned it from a money wasting, time delaying conglomerate of just stupidity into something that they've whipped into shape. Because like they found out the hard way when they came under Sony's strict discipline that you must hit deadlines and you must do it with quality. There are a lot of people who didn't like that, but not to turn this into a Bungie chat, but this is
Falcon,
a great example.
The deadline thing's going to be pretty.
Right.
I think the deadline thing's going to be pretty something that's going to be the hammer that PlayStation dropped in their studios, based on I think what Totoki was saying about like gone are the days of like, you know, missing deadlines or, you know, things like that.
Well, they can't afford to. They can't afford to. But this feeds back into the, as Forte was saying, with not just leaving it as a Bungie only conversation, but extrapolating it back out to Helldivers. That they're already on all consoles. Marathon's going everywhere. If their games ever comes out, it's probably going everywhere. The point to all of this is they've had to right size the studios to do the things they need it to do. But just because it's owned by PlayStation and published by PlayStation, it can't go on another platform is not the case anymore. And it's Helldivers again. It's not at the IP. Sony's got some interest in that IP, but it's also got a lot of Tencent owns 15% of Arrowhead.
Tencent,
So,
15%, yeah.
So there's a lot of context in behind these decisions, and it's not, you know, it was the studio Arrowhead that made the announcement, not PlayStation, and that should not be overlooked. The challenge there is it has to be done on a case-by-case basis. For PlayStation, they won't do something that will cost them money. Their context and their background in how they're approaching this is not around we need to sell stuff because we need to make money to make this thing profitable. It's already profitable. And people can argue, oh, but it's a small profit margin. It doesn't matter. It's profitable.
Falky, when you say it's already profitable, what you're referring to is PlayStation, the ecosystem.
PlayStation
right?
is
hardware,
an ecosystem.
Yes,
as a business unit within Sony, PlayStation not only stands on its own 2 feet, PlayStation generates more profitability or more revenue and profitability than Sony Music and Sony Pictures combined. That's how big it is within the Sony group. Xbox, on the other hand, is currently at the bottom, in the bottom section, the bottom third, and near the bottom of that section, and it has been backfunded by Big Daddy Microsoft for a decade plus, and it is now in a position where it's not going to get all that funding anymore, as we spoke about earlier, with the switch for the big parent company moving everything over to AI and focus on that development, the stupid amount of money they're going to pour in there. So Xbox has got to find a way to make more money for itself. Otherwise, it is at risk of just being turned off. And when you could barely make a difference in the rounding within that whole Microsoft Microsoft as a conglomerate, you've really got to be careful about what you do and don't do. Hence the reason why they just offloaded a heap of people they can't afford to keep. They shut down projects that weren't running at margins that were useful, or they'd been going for too long. As soon as they've instilled a level of discipline into that organization, they've had this massive impact, and it's all negative. And they've had to bring games over to PlayStation because that people buy games. Those customers buy games. Consumers buy games in PlayStation because they're conditioned to do it. They buy games on Steam because they're conditioned to do it. They don't buy games on Xbox because they're conditioned they don't have to. So going the other way, and as I said, this is going to be the test for them. Helldivers 2 is going to Xbox, but it's not going to Game Pass. So they've got to pay full price for the game, and they've got to have a paid for subscription to Game Pass Core to be able to play the multiplayer. So we'll see if they're going to actually stump up the cash for it or not. But if this doesn't work, then what other games are going to go over there? Well, the only other games that would go over there would have to be games that people are prepared to pay money for. But we're not talking about a consumer base that is big on single player games or story driven narrative games. That's a player base that's big on multiplayer games. Well, it makes sense to send Helldivers over there, doesn't it? But again, this is not necessarily PlayStation doing all the work. PlayStation just has to say, yes, we're comfortable with it to happen. And then Arrowhead does all the work. And Nexus has provided some support to get it over there, but they're learning on how to put stuff on the Microsoft systems as well. And they're going to have to do that at some point in the future. And funding from Tencent has been chipped in to provide support for it. So PlayStation is going to get a return for minimal investment. I don't see PlayStation investing a heap of money into something that there's never going to put a return on it. So again, context and nuance. Where they're approaching it from, Xbox is approaching it from, we've got to make more money and we've got to do it quickly. How do we do that? PlayStation is approaching it from, we can go case by case, however we want to do it, to where it makes sense to do these things, but we don't have to rush it out and we don't have to force it because we already make enough money.
So that's Falky. I appreciate that level of nuance. That is what's been missing, I think, from a lot of the conversation I've been seeing around this particular subject. I also think it's interesting from as a case study, right? To your point about Helldivers 2 being on Xbox, different consumers, how those consumers are conditioned to consume video games, right? One platform buys more, the other one Game Pass, right? It's going to be interesting to see how Helldivers does, because having to, and we've talked about it on this show before, any publisher releases a game on Xbox has to compete with Game Pass. So it's going to be interesting to see what the knock-on effect of Game Pass is to Helldivers 2 being a $40 game and not a free-to-play. Arrowhead's already saying no, it's not coming to Game Pass. That's not an option. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how this game performs on. And to your point, this kind of we're gonna test the waters over there and see how a live service game does with a price tag on a platform that has declining hardware sales, has Game Pass as something to contend against.
Yep. Yeah.
What do you think, Forte?
No, that's good. Oh, just to say, because being a Destiny head for a long time, I have to say this. Edge of Fate is 50% down from what was
the previous DLC?
Final Shape.
Yeah, Final Shape. It's
wow.
Edge of Fate. Edge of Fate is at during the first month of release for Final Shape, it was 2.2 million sold. They're at half of that right now. If you project it out all the way up now. Think about Edge of Fate. I don't know, man. The only reason I haven't pre-ordered yet because I'm just not bought in. I wasn't even bought in when Final Shape came out because I was kind of done with the game at that point. I only bought it because I wanted to finish the 10-year fight, and I did it. And after I done it, I was gone and haven't played since. So it's just going to be interesting to see how that goes. But so yeah, I don't know what number it was, but as of right now, yeah, it's only 50%, and it could only be in the 100. I mean, still 1 million of anything is still good, but I don't know how they feel about that when it comes to a studio that they spent that much money on. But
yeah,
when it comes to go ahead. What was the other question?
No, I was gonna go ahead. Finish your thought there. Forte.
No. Go ahead. Ask your question. What was it?
No, I was gonna ask you, what you thought about, this case study or this test, if you will, Helldivers 2, and if you think it's going to resonate with the Xbox consumer base. Look, it's a shooter. I don't want to stereotype. Yeah, go ahead.
No, that's. I mean, we stereotyped the Xbox a long time ago when it was a shooter box, and that's just what it was. It's not just that anymore. It's probably more of a Western RPG box at this point, with all of the different things they have. A lot. Xbox has so much more diversity on it as a console compared to its younger years of being a platform holder. The fact that they have diversified not just the genres, but just the ethnicity of people that play on this system. When it comes to like, we have a lot more JRPGs, Western RPGs. There's pretty much a game for everybody on Xbox when that didn't used to be the case. And then, like you said, you're also fighting with the fact that you have Game Pass on a platform that they inherently taught people that they don't have to buy games. But with that even being said, I still think Helldivers, it is a little chest to see exactly what might happen, but I actually think it's going to do, I don't know how well, but I think it's going to do decently well enough. Because it is it is a live service game, and I do think live service games do work well on Xbox due to the online infrastructure. The one thing I will say is it is like one of the best online infrastructures of all the platforms, I think, in general, because it was built from the beginning. Now we could talk about how the decline of that has happened over the course of some generations with Xbox. But I still think of all the big three, with Nintendo being woefully behind, even knowing they still charge people premium prices for online. They still charging us premium prices for online. I still say that they're
real quick. I'm sorry. You're commenting on Nintendo, and I chuckle because it's true.
But, I love Nintendo.
But you know why but here's the thing with people are like, I can't believe Nintendo charges much. They do it because they can.
Because they can. Just like they can charge you, because they can charge you $80 for Mario Kart. Because they can.
That's that loyalty. And when people argue to me exclusives don't matter, I'm like, no, just look at Nintendo. Look, I don't think we have this argument with Netflix, with HBO Max, with Disney Plus. Yeah, I mean, like, it's exclusivity. I can't even talk that.
Netflix makes me spend $24 a month because they know I like having HD and 4K, and they know I like having it on more than one or two devices. So they're going to charge me every time. And when it goes up every 6 or 8 months to a year, I'm just going to pay the extra $3. Now, at some point, that's going to stop. If they get to like 40, 30, 40, $50, I'm not paying that anymore. I'm like, yo, I can.
Forte, you say that now? You say that now, Forte.
That's true.
But when Stranger Things season 7 comes out, you're going to be like,
listen, no, then I'll just be aware that it cost me that much, and I'll just turn off my subscription when it's over. It's
funny. That's what I do with HBO Max. So like I actually had this
because right now I just let it rock, because it's like, okay, $24. I just let Netflix rock. But if it's like $40 a month, I'm like, yo, I don't even watch you every day for $40 a month. So that's what I would be like. At a certain point, it's like you kind of gotta, walk away from it, because it's kind of crazy where we are with that type of stuff. But you're right. They allow you, they do what you allow them to do. And that's all that Nintendo does. And Xbox, to an extent, is in the situation because they allowed their players to like kind of dictate the direction that they're going in, and they kind of have to go that way. And I think PlayStation sees a opportunity to test the waters of what a multi-plat game looks like on Xbox. This is probably the best scenario that they have when it comes to, it's not a first party. It's not a first party. It's not a single player game where
not a tentpole.
It's not. Well, not even that. It's a tentpole.
Not a single party. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not a single player game where we don't know what the player base is going to react to, because most people that play on Xbox, for the most part, mostly play multiplayer. It's a multiplayer centric console. It's even more multiplayer centric than PlayStation. If you think about just the averages, it's just more people on PlayStation, so it skews the number. But if you think about Xbox and PlayStation and which one has the percentage of people on that platform do one thing, Xbox, and no one really knows the true number. I would just assume that it's more people that play Xbox multiplayer than people that play it on PlayStation, because PlayStation has this lineage of single player. A lot of people just play single player. They only play games like that. They don't too much care for multiplayer, where for the most part, Xbox players been multiplayer-ing it up for years and stuff. So So it's just probably a bigger diverse, so they could kind of see what a game like Helldivers would look like on a multiplayer centric platform and see if they actually are going to support it by paying for it. And I don't know what that's going to look like, because it's not like we really had that type of data on that type of game before, because even Xbox's first party games, they go directly into Game Pass. And even when you get games like what was the game from Square Enix? The Outer, what was it? The one
the Outriders.
Outriders, yeah. That game fit Xbox perfectly, but guess what? It was in Game Pass, so you really never got a chance to see
loved Outriders.
I loved Outriders, bro. And that's what I'm trying to say. Outriders did
better
amazing.
Gears of War.
That's what I'm saying. Outriders did amazing on Xbox, mostly because it was in Game Pass. But that would have been the perfect game to see how much support it would have got if people paid for it. But if you kind of think about what the developer said and how they got screwed in the end by Square and bonuses and stuff, because the game didn't sell up the size because it was in Game Pass, that would have been the perfect game to kind of see how Xbox players would have supported the game in buying it. But they didn't have that opportunity because it was in Game Pass. So I think this is the best thing. I do think the funny thing is, I do think this game will end up in Game Pass at some point. I just don't think it's going to be anytime soon, maybe 6 to 8 months from now, once they get a feel of what the player base looks like. Because at a certain point, they want to get they want active users in the game, but they're not going to do it right out the gate. They want to see what this game's going to sell on that platform so they can gauge future projects to see if it's even worth bringing games over there to even think that they can make any profit. And then once that game's over there for like 5-6 months, maybe a year, then I think they'll turn the Game Pass faucet on, because at that point, the game already sold it already did its lifetime sales. It's probably going to do on a console. And then you're just really chasing active users. And the only way you're going to get more active users is by throwing it into a service. And I think that will coincide with them throwing it in their own service, PS Plus, because right now it's not even in that service. No. So I think it's going to get thrown into all those services at the same time when they finally do it. So it's nice to hear them say it's not going into Game Pass, but I think that's just right now. 7-8 months from now, I think that might be a different conversation. And that's not trying to say it needs to be there. I just think it's going to end up there at some point, because sales are going to dry up on it everywhere for the most part. And then they're just going to want active users in the game to keep the player base going.
They're going to get that bag from Microsoft to put it in.
Trust me, they definitely going to get a bag to put it in.
And I think 14, to your point, if it ends up in Game Pass sooner than later, I think that's an indicator that the game wasn't selling well at all.
Oh, I agree. If it takes a year to get in there, then I think it actually sold well enough for them to be comfortable with just selling it. But if you see it in Game Pass within 3 months, 4 months.
If it's there before Christmas.
Yeah, if it's there before the end of this holiday, then it's unless Microsoft just throws a bag at them, which who knows with Microsoft at this point, anything can happen.
They don't have a very big bag to throw around at the moment.
Well,
I think, Falky,
I'm still holding Sadia's feet to the fire when he said we not done yet.
I mean,
I'm still holding those feet to the fire.
I'm hearing more layoffs are coming soon, unfortunately. So
Microsoft. I wouldn't be surprised, bro. They haven't even down. They got that so Xbox, many. Listen, this is and people don't think about, and this is the thing people need to really think about. Bethesda still operates autonomously in Xbox. Activision still they still operate autonomously inside of Xbox too. They are still under the Microsoft and Xbox umbrella, but they don't fund themselves because Microsoft does that, but they still operate independently. They just have to answer to, the heads like Phil Spencer and stuff like that. But that means they still have their financial departments. They still have their HR departments. I think all that's going away. I think all that stuff's getting. I think that's the thing though.
That seems so redundant to have those separate, HR. Why would you do that? Why would
because they wanted to
centralize.
Because they wanted to make it seem like that they were willing to Like that was the whole plan. Like when they brought those studios in, they told Pete Hines and they told them saying, hey, you guys are still going to be operating as Bethesda, but you're just going to be doing it under the Microsoft and Xbox shield. But now that Microsoft, and I still think this is more of a Microsoft play, and again, why I think people are finally starting to realize that Xbox, the leadership at Xbox has no weight anymore when it comes to things, because I just feel like Xbox wants that to still be a thing. They like the way those partnerships work. Microsoft is like, no, that's overhead that we don't need. Those are redundancies we do not need. And all of this stuff came to head once they purchased Activision Blizzard, and Amy Hood got a chance to see the books. And part of us can say that maybe Microsoft was, and no one's ever said this, but I also think maybe Microsoft was kind of naive to like think that they wasn't things going on that they didn't know about when it came to like the whole structure and the way that business was being done under Xbox, because they just weren't paying attention to it. But the thing is, when you spend so much money, like $70 billion, not only the head of the company, Satya Nadella, is paying attention to it, all the investors are paying attention to it. The whole board is paying attention to it. Shoot, you probably had Steve Ballmer paying attention. He ain't been part of Microsoft in a long time, but that's a lot of money that moved through there. So they need to vet all of that stuff. And when they're looking at it, they're like, yo, we're fine with the money we spent, but how are we going to make this money back? And the quickest way to make money back is to get rid of redundancies, to lay people off. And people don't realize that healthcare is the most expensive thing that companies pay for. It's more expensive than the salaries they pay people. So it is easy for them to cut back and say, we're paying $3 million in salaries to these 3,000 people, but healthcare costs us way more than that. And that's why Microsoft was doing a lot of work. If you think about 343 or Halo Studios now, that's why you saw them doing a lot of contract working. Like we all boohoo, like why they got so many contractors and this and that. And I agree, because there's no continuity when it comes to like people coming in and people going. But the reason contract workers work as well as they work is because you're just paying for them to be there. You're not paying for the insurance that it costs for these people to actually work at your company. That's all being outsourced and being paid by somebody else. So now you're starting to see Microsoft saying, like, we're paying way too many people. The fact that they have laid off more than 20,000 people in the last 2 years, they did, what was it, 10,000 a year before?
Yeah.
It is 9.1 million, 9,100 people this year, and y'all hear more is coming. Can you imagine just 20,000 people from a company disappearing? That's the crazy thing right there.
A lot of people. Yeah.
That's only for Microsoft though. That's only a 10% reduction in headcount from this time last year. It's 24,000 people is a 10% reduction, and that's what they said they were going to do. They're going to do a 10% reduction in headcount over the next 18 months.
And guess what they're going to do? They're going to hire 0.3% of that is going to get hired back in probably lower wages. New people coming back into the company, because as much as these companies are laying people off, they're also bringing people in. Yeah, they're never bringing them back at the amount. They're not bringing 10,000 people in a year, but they're bringing in 3,000-4,000 people. But their overhead is going to be a lot lower because they're not paying those people as much as they were paying the people before. And then we're not even talking about the whole AI side of it, whereas 5,000 jobs can kind of be eliminated, and all we need to do is hire probably 200 to 300 people to maintain the servers and maintain the cloud to make sure that the AI model consistently works when we want it to work, and just pay those people to do that job that you were paying 3,000 people to do just to maintain it. So it's a lot of different ways that the companies are doing. It's all about reduction. It's all about year-over-year growth. Microsoft is not doing bad as a company. I don't think people already know they're not.
I saw that when I saw that stock price and then the layoffs. I said this on Twitter. I'll never be at peace with the layoffs like that. Yeah.
I am conflicted because I am a stockholder for Microsoft. I've been buying stock in Microsoft ever since 2015. I buy it literally instead of my 401k, I literally take money every paycheck and I put it into Microsoft stock. At this point, it's like every 3 months or so, I end up with a stock. That's kind of how it is. Where I used to get like 2 or 3 stocks every paycheck back in 2015 when the stock was like 40 something dollars a share. It's kind of crazy. But this where that stock price is right now is so crazy. But even me being a stockholder and being a person that, you know, supports the company, you can't expect that company to consistently grow and meet year over year deadlines because there's a cap to year over year. At some point, you have to reset as a company. You can't always say I'm 25% up every year on this or 10% here or 30% there. At some point, you kind of have to either cut some of the ancillary things that you are doing as a company. If you go back to what PlayStation did when they were closing divisions and stuff, when they closed like their when they shut down the mobile division for the most part, when they shut down their PC division, they were selling buildings off. Remember, we were all making fun like PlayStation, they got no money. They out here selling buildings because they were getting rid of all their overhead, the things that they could get rid of, even knowing the company wasn't doing bad, they still wanted to stay profitable. And that's what and Microsoft's doing the same thing. The thing that sucks about what Microsoft is doing, they're doing it with real breathing people. They're not doing it with assets like, you know, other companies do it with. They just have their assets are the amount of people that work for them. And that's why it feels real disgusting because, like you said, the stock price is so high, but then you're eliminating 10 to 20,000 jobs every 2 years. But then you're bringing people back into the company. So it's not like you're really firing people. It's like you're just churning out the old to bring fresh new ideas in. But then that cycle is going to repeat the next year because it happens every year with them.
It's always the saddest thing is the fastest way to get an immediate change in your cash flow is to offload things that cost you money every fortnight or every week. And unfortunately, payroll is where that expense is. Buildings and facilities take months, if not years, to get sorted out. Offloading other expenditure that's under contracts and commitments is damn near impossible. Contractors you can bring on and off the books pretty easily if you need to. But again, they're always tied to some delivery of performance. People, unfortunately, employed people is the fastest way for an organization to go, we need to cut expenditure. Well, we need a cash injection. Right. We're going to get rid of thousands of people. Just go and find thousands of people and see who you've got left, and then we'll work out what we're going to do next. And if you've got to get rid of all these projects that aren't going to perform or that have gone too far, shut them down as well, or shut down these programs or whatever it is. It's part of that contraction, and it's always going to happen after a market change, a disturbance, or a major market reset, or a disruptor comes into a market, or you've had a consolidation point and you've got to do the slimming. And as you pointed out before, Forte, they still haven't done the slimming for the back of house stuff. Payroll, HR, finance, IT support, internal employee support, all that stuff. There's at least a couple of thousand jobs there that can go upon consolidating all that, let alone now that they've offloaded 20,000 people in the last 12 months, they don't even need the people in the core Microsoft business that were doing that. So there's another 500 to 1,000 that'll go out of that.
Yeah.
And like you said, the cost, it's not just the cost of the payroll, but it's the cost of all the other things that go along with it. The cost of having the facilities and the IT services there for them to be working with, and all the other support stuff costs. And you've got your healthcare insurance. You've got EAPs and all this other stuff. You know, having one person employed, you can easily add 50 to 75% of their annual salary just in on cost for having them as an employee, and then add another 50% on for the facilities and housing that employee. It's insane what it costs to hire people these days. And it's unfortunate,
Yeah.
but if they don't do the flexing of the right sizing at the time, when you have these trim downs at a later stage, it is horrendous what the impacts can be to the individuals. And they're turfing out people that have been there for 15 years.
Yeah.
So it's not last in, first out, obviously. They're going through and carving out huge amounts of people. And so why does someone who's been there for 15 years get let go? Because the amount of entitlements that will be sitting on the balance sheet, getting rid of those as well as a future liability is also something that gets considered here. When you start unloading those people who are pushing close to a retirement point, and the retirement plans and the payouts there, that businesses will ruthlessly just carve them out, because there's as much as they've saved the money now, they've saved a massive payout in the mid to long term as well. And those provisions of employee benefits can be huge because they've been compounding for so long. So yeah, it's massive. But I'm sorry, I got to head off, guys.
Yeah. No worries, Falky. No, appreciate your time.
I was happy to keep you for another 30 minutes.
Sorry, mate. Yeah. No, I got to head off. I got a couple of family things I got to go and get involved with. So, but yeah, great for the chat. Thanks for having us.
All right, Falky. Thank you. Always a pleasure, sir. Happy to see you. That means humanity's made it to another day.
Yes, it's turned into quite a lovely sunny day too. So anyway, keep safe and enjoy.
Enjoy the rest of it and enjoy the rest of the holiday week.
Thanks, you too, mate.
Yes, sir.
All right, see you, Falky.
Yeah.
Forte. The layoffs, man. Just I can never, just because the work that I do and some of the things that
I get it, man.
It's so callous. So it sucks. I get it, and then when you see the stock price, and then you see, I didn't like Phil's
oh, you ain't like his
memo. No, I thought that was very cold. Like, hey, like business is doing like why would you say that? Like, don't say that. We're doing well. Stop. Like, that is, you think about like just the lack of self-worth. Like, don't say stuff like that when people are losing their jobs. People have been there 15 years, 20 years, but Forte, I'm glad you joined the show today, because I thought you brought up an interesting point, kind of piggyback to the topic here, about this evolution of exclusivity as relates to PlayStation. I do agree with you. Obviously, clearly it's evolved, right? We're seeing it play out today. But it's going to be interesting to see. Again, I don't think for the reasons that's going to be interesting, right? But I for the reasons Falky mentioned about the profitability and how healthy the PlayStation business is today, I don't think that they're going to become platform agnostic in how they publish titles. I don't see that happen. Again, who knows? 20 years from now, that could change. The business tanks for them, and they're like, "Oh shit, we got to pivot," or there's something in the market that requires that change to happen. Maybe, but I'm not going to say that's definitively going to happen.
Right.
But again, to your point, we don't know either what the future holds.
You're right. We don't know nothing.
I actually didn't think GameSpot would be around, or not GameSpot, GameStop. I didn't think GameStop would have been around in 2025, but I don't know. Like, I went to my local GameStop the other day. I meant to say, Forte, I meant to call you the other day. Actually, I did call you, I think.
Did you?
The day that I went in and traded my the last of the Xbox Series X consoles that we had in our house, and my original launch day PlayStation 5. I traded it in for the PlayStation 5 Pro.
Okay. And how much you get for it? How much did you pay for that Pro out of pocket?
No, I think it came out to be like $120 because I got the disc drive.
Oh, okay. So, yeah.
If not, I would have paid like $50 out of pocket.
Yeah, so that's $80 out of pocket right there.
Yeah.
So Sony for doing that to us.
Oh my god! But I can't. I didn't like it, but I'm like, you know what? Like,
I blame them. I blame them. They could. In the box.
Yeah, they should. I don't disagree with you. Like, include that in the box, but but it's interesting. Like, the guy asked me something. He said, do you want something? And I'm like, no. And he's like, is it because you don't think GameStop's going to be around in the future? I'm like, that's an interesting question to ask me. I was like, no,
At least
I
he
was
had
like,
the balls to ask you.
I said, no, I said, I know. I was like, I have someone, I know someone that works in Michigan who is a manager for like 3 stores. Is it 3 or 2? I forget.
2.
2. Okay. I said,
I'd have
well,
quit if it was 3.
I said, my buddy Forte, I didn't give you your real name, works at like 2 or like 3 of them. And he seems to be pretty positive about where GameStop is. But I'll say this, like, I was surprised at GameStop, considering like all the closures and kind of the restructuring and everything, like that they wouldn't be around. But the GameStop I was at was packed,
Bro,
like
listen.
busy. And I'm like, is it like this all the time? He's like, on the weekends, yes.
Yeah, bro. It's Ryan Cohan did a AMA on Twitter not too long ago, or X, where he talked about all of that stuff, and he wasn't shy until we're still closing stores, and and he said, but the thing is, the company's in the black. Like they got more money than most Fortune 500 companies, like pure cash.
Now, is this the guy that ran
Chewy?
The Chewy? Yes, Chewy.
Yeah.
Thank you. I was at the
Chewy.
dog company, but it's not.
Well, same thing. the dog food company. But no, he's the CEO. So yeah, we're in a really good spot when it comes to like on hand cash. It would take a lot for them not to do that, but I also think it's just a direction where I couldn't tell you what the final count's going to be on stores. I think we're still around like 2,100 stores or something at this point right now. But there's still going to be, I think there's going to still obviously be more.
Yeah.
But I also think with like the direction with PSA, with grading cards and stuff like that, that's like the future. Like, I've been telling my friends, I was like, other store manager, I said, you should try to do everything you can to like talk up trading cards in your store, and try to get people to buy cards and get cards from other stores to try to sell them in your store if you're not really selling them, because I think they look at stuff like that because you got to be a multi-tool store at this point. I think
Forte
selling games isn't it anymore.
That's so funny you said that. That's because I was talking to the manager for a bit. That is exactly what he said to me. He goes, I have a great group of employees that work here that have set up like tabletop games. And I saw in the background like card games, tabletop games. And we have people that come here on like during the weeknights. And they sit in the back and we sell cards. They play tabletop games. It brings traffic. He's like, to your point, he's like, we have to be creative about how we engage our community. And I'm like, and Forte, everything you're saying, and I'm like, but he did tell me, he said, the issue with GameStop was that there was a store in every block, like within like 5 minutes from each other.
Yep.
You can't, that's not sustainable.
It's not about to be that no more.
Yeah. That's what he was.
It's definitely decreased a lot since then. So, and it kind of probably needed to. I ain't gonna say probably. It needed to happen. I don't want to see associates lose their jobs. And for the most part, anybody that was at a store that was impacted, if they wanted to, they could find other locations to go to, or they could just take severance. So there is an offer out there for people to stay with the company if they want to. But it just ultimately comes down to like it was just way too many. Like I just think about in my area alone, we still have probably 10 stores within a 30-minute drive of each other. So and we still do really, really well. So I do think that there is going to be areas of the company where you're going to still see something like that, where everybody still does very, very well. But the thing is, you just have to consistently do well, because I think if you like kind of fall off, that's where those decisions are kind of being made on the background. It's like, okay, well, if we can like, move a lot of these customers to another store in that area and not really lose those people, then let's kind of do that. And So I think this is going to be the year where you're going to see like a lot of the decrease in store numbers. But, for the most part, I just think if you're an associate at GameStop, just do everything you can to diversify yourself when it comes to like the people that walk in your door, the things that you try to sell. Like my store is a retro store. And
so what does that mean, retro store? Just for those
so
who
it just
may not
means
be
that we have more
familiar with that.
it just means we have more retro than other stores. Like all stores have retro for the most part, but most stores just have it in a drawer. Like, if people coming in to ask, like, hey, do you have any 360 or any PS3 or any, GameCube or anything? And that's how my store used to be. But then I just got tired of people asking me that question. So I remember what I did. I had amiibos on a gondola because we had a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
So I took my Xbox section because Xbox didn't have as many games. So I made my Xbox section like 2 feet shorter. Like I just cut 2 feet off of it. And I put my amiibos on the wall. And then I did where my amiibos were on one of the gondolas. I took all my retro out and put it on the gondola and turned it sideways so it was facing the front of the store. So when people walked in, like as they walked by our cash wrap, the retro was like smacking you right there in the face. You could do nothing but see it. And then it was like that for, I want to say 6, 7, maybe 8 months. And then that's when GameStop announced that they were doing retro stores. And I was one of the very first stores to get in because I was already selling it probably more than anybody. And it wasn't because the company had me do it or anything. It was all because I got tired of people asking me about retro and where it was. And I was like, I'm just going to make a spot on the floor. And I said, that's probably going to be a twofold thing because now that people can see it, we might sell more of it.
That's a great point. Yeah. No, it's interesting. Forte, the store that I went to is also retro. Like it has like older consoles. Like they had a Switch on display, an Xbox One, older titles, stuff like that.
Yeah, I have the whole deck of my store is all retro. Like one side is Xbox and PlayStation retro. The other side is Nintendo retro. We have the glass case with all our consoles in it. I have, I think 264s in it right now. A GameCube's in there. A PS1 Slim's in there. A whole bunch of 3DSs are in there because those are considered retro at this point now. I had a Dreamcast like complete in box that somebody traded in. That was in there. It only lasted for like 3 hours before somebody bought it. But yeah, it's pretty crazy how it is. And I did the same thing with cards because my store is a submission store where we submit cards to PSA. And I remember talking to our VP of stores and I told him, I was like, people around here ask for cards all the time. And they say, yeah, it doesn't look like you really sell that much though. And I was like, well, that's because I don't have it. So he told me, he was like, okay, we're going to make sure we get you more of that. But then on top of him saying they're going to get me more of it, I actually went to stores and actually procured some myself. So like I would go to like stores that had a bunch of them in the area because we already had stores. We had stores that were already submission stores at the point. So they had like way more cards than most people. So I would go there. It's like, hey, can I get about, 10 or 15 of your, these like boxes of cards or whatever they were. And I would just bring them to my store, put them on display. I would instantly sell them. And then it got to the point where they just started sending me more and more and more of that stuff. And I ended up getting a glass case from a store that closed. I don't know if you ever seen like the little collectible. Have you been into a GameStop that has the TVs in it?
Yeah, that's the GameStop.
So yours has the TV.
Mine has a TV
for Xbox, PlayStation, and Nintendo. It has the TVs on top of all the sections.
It doesn't have the TVs on top of all the sections. It has like two or three TVs.
Okay, but they have like the red. They have like a cabinet that's either red, a blue, or a green one, basically with Xbox or PlayStation and stuff in it.
I don't remember.
I don't know, but I have one of those cabinets because there was a store that was closing, and I took one of those cabinets and I made one for my trading card section and put a whole bunch of high end stuff in it, and all that stuff sold. And then my store ended up being a submission store and ended up being a trading card expansion store, and it was all because I just did little things to I know what's going on with the company, and I like my job. I don't, want to be one of those stores that is going to like not be here. So you have to do everything in your power for that to happen. So, if I was to tell anybody, if you like something, kind of do something about it to make sure you keep doing it. It's just like YouTube. It's just like, practicing your jump shot. If you stop practicing, you're not going to get better. If you don't do this, you're not going to get better at it. So I just became better at my job. I feel like the more and more the conversation around, like you said, GameStop closing, I started making sure that I made my store stand out more in order to like keep my store, so that's kind of the way I go about it, because, GameStop's a cool place to work at, man. I hear horror stories all over the place and can't really speak to other people's their thoughts to what happened or their impressions of what happened in their situations. I just always tell people, like, all stores aren't the same. All stores are not equal. It really depends on people at that point. People work for people. We all work for we all work for GameStop, but it's the people that they work for that makes those stores different from other places.
Yeah, no, you know what? I'm happy to hear that your store is having success, Forte, and that you've seen success from some of the effort that you put into it. I don't ever want to see a time where there's no GameStop. I love GameStop. I miss the. It's funny, like when I went to get the PlayStation 5 Pro, like I missed the novelty of going to a store like GameStop, buying hardware, and just like seeing the excitement of consumers, like just looking at the display cases, the different games, a discussion around, I'm thinking about buying a Nintendo Switch 2, or, I'm thinking about buying a PlayStation, or, hey, do you have this controller? Like I hate not to be able to have that kind of experience. And it was nice to actually get out and actually do some shopping, as opposed to like,
facts.
It's so impersonal, like going to the PlayStation store and downloading a game, or the Xbox store and downloading a game.
No, I get it, man.
It was just nice to go out, and the manager was great. He was wonderful. But I have to say I'm very happy with my PlayStation 5 Pro purchase. I'm glad I actually picked it up. Finally pulled the trigger on it. So
as you should.
Forte, I would do while I have you here. Before we wrap up the show, and I'll go back to the original topic, but I mean, me to ask you, Nintendo Switch 2.
What about it?
How is it selling?
Oh man, you want the real answer to that?
Yes.
So not the half-baked answer that my man Yoshi would give you, that it's just selling like hotcakes, selling everywhere. All right, so my store had 50 pre-orders. Yeah, 50 pre-orders. I got another 90 on launch day for people to walk in. We did the midnight. Starting at 3:00, we did pre-ring. I was out of all my systems by 6 p.m. All 140, I think, 150. No, yeah, 140 systems. Out by 3:00, sold out completely. All of the systems, with the exception of I think 12, got picked up at midnight. So I only had 12 in my back room going into the next day, which made my Thursday amazing. Which, for a Switch launch day, I barely saw people because everybody came the night before, which was awesome. It was great. It was crazy. But I still got phone calls every 2 seconds. Got any Switch 2s? I was sending people to stores all over the place. And this just goes to saying that Nintendo did an amazing job making sure that they had allocation, not just for day one, but going into day two. There were still people going into Friday able to get a Switch all the way up until about 2-3 o'clock that afternoon. Then we got a restock the next week. I think I got like 15 or 20 of them. No, 25. All gone within a day and a half. All the stores in my area, all gone within a day and a half. Got another restock later that week. Probably like 15 or 20 more systems. All gone by the end of that week. That would put us a week after launch. So this would be, we're in the 3 weeks after launch. No, we're 4 weeks after launch now because today's the 5th. We have consistently got systems. I didn't think this. Now, if someone had put me on asked me what was the thing I was going to think of, I would have been like, we're not going to get restocks until like August, September. We've been getting restocks consistently. Like I sold out this morning, opened up a box, and I had 10 more.
Wow.
And guess what? When I left the store, of those 10 that I had left, I only had 3 left. So they're selling like it's ridiculous how they're selling.
It's like every time you get inventory and they're sold out.
They're gone. Like
they're gone. Yeah.
Like
wow.
And I love the people that are, because normally it's people calling over the phone asking if we had them. But I've been able to just give them to people walking in saying, hey, I know you've been asked this question 1,000 times and you got to switch too. And I said, I got a Mario Kart bundle. They say, you what? I got to call my wife.
You got to get wifey's blessing first.
I got to call my wife, or I got to call my husband,
wifey's blessing.
Or hey, is it possible you can hold it? I said I need to go home and get my Switch because I want to trade that in towards it. And then 90% of the time I'll tell people, like, if it's like they just want me to hold it, then I'd say no, it's first come first serve. But if they're going home to get a console because they want to make it cheaper, I say I give you an hour. If you're not back in an hour, this system's going to the next person. And normally 90% of the time they're back at the store trading their stuff in so they can get their system. But man, dude, these things are flying out the door. Like, I don't know. I mean, part of it, I think, is FOMO, because I think people are just a fear of missing out because no one knows how many of these things are going to be out there. But I just have a feeling that Nintendo is just, I think they're just sitting on a lot of these systems. Like, I think there's going to be a lot for the holiday. I think that rumor of that 20 million consoles for this year, I don't think that's an exaggeration, bro. They might have about 15 to 20 million systems that they might sell this year alone. And we're talking about only half a year. Because they're just selling no matter where you go. People are walking into Target, and like one person, perfect example, he came into the store today, asked if I had it. I said, yeah. He's like, dang. He said, I just bought one from Target. He said, do you think I should take it back and buy it from here? And I was like, well, how did you pay for it at Target? He said, I just paid cash for it. I was like, well, if you bought it here, you get the points on it. You got the membership card already. He had $13 in points, so he would have got $13 off the system from us. On top of the purchasing of the system, he gets like another $10 in points just for purchasing. And I said, are you picking up Donkey Kong, or are you going to be picking up Metroid or something? He said, I'm picking up Donkey Kong later this month. I said, dude, that's like $20 off your Donkey Kong by just buying it here with your points. And he was like,
Forte,
I'll be back.
The points are, I won't go anywhere else now to buy hardware or video games. I actually re-upped my my GameStop membership.
Oh, look at you.
The points.
You believe in GameStop?
Oh, the point. Let me tell you, the points actually gave me higher trading value. Like the trading value, the additional trading value it gave me paid for the membership. Like the point, like it paid for itself that day. And I accumulated so many points now because of that purchase.
Oh yeah. You got, because instead of getting the one-time points, you get like the 2 times.
Yeah.
You know what the funny thing is? If you have the credit card, you get 4 times.
You know what? I have the credit card, I just never use it.
Bro, you know what I do with mine? Because I have the credit card too. Yeah. What I do is whenever anytime I'm using my card, or I'm using debit or credit or cash, I just use my GameStop card to pay for it, and then I just pay off my card.
You pay off, yeah.
Because then you're getting 4 times. You get 4 times the points.
Oh shit! I need to do
4
that.
points. Yeah. So with just the pro account, you get 2 points for every dollar spent. 20 points for every dollar spent. With the pro card, you get 40.
All right. See, I'm gonna buy Ghost of Yote, and I'm gonna buy it at GameStop. Use the credit card, do like that.
Yeah, just use. No, seriously, that's what I do. I use my credit card to buy it, and then literally that same day, I'll just go onto my account and I'll log in and I'll pay my credit card off. I'll pay the $40 off right then and there.
And so then, what are the points? Like, what can you use the points for again?
Anything other than digital currency.
Okay.
And you can use up to, I believe, $55 a transaction in points.
Okay. That's right. Okay.
So
Yeah, I don't think that
adds
gets.
up.
Yeah, I don't think people talk about that enough. That the points
it's
can go towards the purchase, and there's a lot. I mean, yeah.
it's a life hack. And the funny thing is, I learned that from a customer. Me working at GameStop didn't even think about that. A customer that had the card, and I said, bro, I asked him. I said, bro, you're always using your card. I said, dog, you maxed that card out yet? And he was like, nah, bro, I get 4 times the points with this. And I just pay the card off as soon as after I pay for everything. He said when he bought his PlayStation 5 Pro, that's $700 times 40 points for each dollar. So what? Just $100 is what? $4 in points.
Yeah,
$4 in points. So you're talking about. So that's $21 in points. Yeah, $21 in points off a Pro at 4 times the points.
Hey, Forte, Ryan Landis has a question in the chat. I didn't even think about asking you this. How is Xbox selling now that the price went up?
We really don't ever get as many of them. I have sold some, but I also think it's kind of hard to gauge just due to the fact that the availability is not as much as it used to be. We do sell a lot of used ones because used ones are way cheaper than the new ones are at this point. But I also will say, I also think it's a lot to do with the fact that we're in a holding pattern because there's really nothing that has come out that requires you to be on one of the newer systems like a PS5 or a Xbox Series S or X yet. Now that's going to change next month NCAA comes out this month on the 10th. That's going to change for the first time with Madden next month because Madden is next gen only. So I think you're going to see a spike in sales then. Don't know where Xbox is going to fall in that. I do think it's going to be pretty significant. I think there's going to be people looking for Xboxes that can't find them, especially if they're the people that only like to buy new because Xbox just don't have enough. It's scarce out there when it comes to those. And then, depending on what happens with Call of Duty at the end of the year, if that's next gen only, that will kind of be the grenade in the pit at that point. But we all know what's going to happen next year with Grand Theft Auto. Next gen only. Anybody that has a console that can't play next gen is going to buy that, especially if they're into that game. So I think that's going to be really the telltale sign on not just with Xbox, just with next gen in general when it comes to new games. But Xbox does fine. They just don't have a lot of stock out there for people to buy. And I don't know if that's by design or not, due to the fact that, they have a completely different philosophy based around, services and online and cloud gaming, and putting their games on PlayStation. If you want to say PlayStation's and Xbox, I'll let you rock that way too. And then if you want to say that, then Xbox is doing well because PlayStation is still doing well.
Yeah, I think it's interesting the lack of availability of hardware. Someone else told me about I forget who it was, something about Best Buy no longer really carrying stock. I think that they'll special order like if someone comes in, so
they'll order. Yeah. If they don't have it, usually they hold it. They'll have it for like the first release, but then after that, if a person comes in, they can order it in store for you and have it shipped directly to your house. That's kind of been the direction they've been going in.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah.
I just think that it's getting harder and harder out here. Harder and harder when it comes to like physical media and stuff. I think Nintendo is the reason that the reason that GameStop and Nintendo are so close is because Nintendo still values the physical market. So even though they still have game keys and stuff like that, but even game keys can be traded in and somebody else can buy it and still use it. So it's like a compromise that's kind of cool if you want to think about somebody that still wants to buy stuff on a secondary market. And I kind of don't understand why game keys get the hate that they get, because if I remember correctly, games like Indiana Jones on Xbox, that game was like 2 gigs on a disc, but a 70 gig game to download. And same thing with a whole bunch of other games. Like the amount of data that's on a disc doesn't match up to the amount of data you download later. I just think it's the fact that Nintendo made a huge statement about we're doing game keys, and people just want, what's a game key? And they brought attention to it. Now people are realizing that, 90% of the games, 90% of these games out here that are game keys don't have the game on it. You got to download the rest of it. And I'm like, where have y'all been? It's been like this for almost a decade now when it comes to games. Games has been doing this since mid Xbox One and PS4 generation. But Nintendo put themselves in the crosshairs by making it a feature that they didn't have to do. They just wanted to have something cool called a game key. And now people are ravaging them because, this is bad for preservations of games. I was like, dude, this has been going on for a long time. Nintendo just gave it a name. That's all it is. Nintendo just, that's the listen, if you really want to pay attention to how people don't know what they're talking about or what people actually understand as what is a problem versus what is a problem, game keys is it. I'm sitting there like, dog, a game key? You're mad because the freaking download isn't on a cartridge. I'm like, bro, this has been going on for 5, 6, 7 years. Nintendo just put a face on it, and now y'all mad about it. So what? It's wild, bro. So I'm trying to tell you, just listen, because people don't know what they talking about half the time, bro. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Forte, I do want to thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate the time, and always a pleasure having conversations with you around video games and GameStop. So thank you, sir.
No, man, good to be here with you, man. I saw you live, and like when I saw you live, I was like, you know what? It's a rare time that I actually got off work today because I worked on the 4th of July.
Okay.
And I got off work at 2:00 or 2:30 today. So I was like sitting here and I said, BRAP's live. And then I was like, you know what? I would be irresponsible to be here and say that I could not have jumped in this show knowing I was just sitting here at home doing nothing.
No, I certainly appreciate you coming through. Like I said, it's always great having, having a conversation with you about all things video games, and do always enjoy what you guys are doing over at DPS with Mr. Slow-Mo Backslap. So please let everyone know where they can find you and plug the show as well.
Yeah, man. Going to be DPS podcast every Thursday, 9 p.m. with the homie Slow-Mo. Great time over there. Come check us out. Also Gaming Forte on YouTube. Check that channel out. Been working on a couple of different things on that channel. Going to start putting videos up on it again. Now that we're in the summer months where it's a lot slower, I feel like I can like really start having those conversations that I want to have and take the time without feeling like I'm burnt out from just doing stuff all day. So I definitely want to get back into that. And also we'll be on the Iron Lords podcast tomorrow, which is something I consistently been on every Sunday for like the last 4 or 5 months. So if you like that, come check us out over there at 1 p.m. on the Iron Lords podcast channel. But as always, BRAP, I really appreciate, as much as I always say I'm gonna make sure I'm here, and I'm here today. And I just wanted to let you know that I appreciate everything you do and the love you always show us, no matter if we're here or we're not here. And that doesn't go unnoticed, bro. So thank you.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, we've been doing this for a long time together, and we still, we're still in the BRAP DM, and so it's just like for me, anytime I can get you guys on the show, it's a treat,
Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, and that's what I'm saying. Like it's always, like B Money showed up a couple weeks ago as well. So
B Money.
Yeah, it's always great when you guys have time. I understand everyone's busy and we all have our lives outside of podcasting. So I really do appreciate when you guys can make the show.
Appreciate it.
So thank you. But yeah, definitely check out DPS Thursday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern time with Slow-Mo Backslap. Big shout out to Slow-Mo. I don't know if he's listening. He might be listening. He's lurking sometimes.
Always.
He tends to lurk a little bit.
Always lurking.
Yeah, although he might be taking a nap right now because that man never sleeps. But
oh no. That's
Yeah,
true.
so,
He doesn't sleep.
Yeah, check out the IOP, which Forte will be on tomorrow. I think you said 1:00, right?
Yep, 1 p.m. baby.
Yeah, big shout out to the folks over at the Iron Lords podcast. Matter of fact, I was actually just conversing while we were doing the show with Cognito on text message. So big shout out to the Iron Lords podcast.
Nice.
And yeah, so everyone enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Have a great weekend. Hopefully you're getting some good gaming in. I'm playing Death Stranding 2 right now and thoroughly enjoying it. But thank you everyone for the support. Big shout out to Falky again, who joined us live earlier from Australia. So thank you, Falky. I know there's a significant time difference. Actually, it's Sunday where he's at, so he's already a day ahead of us. But thank you again, Falky. And we'll be back. Actually, programming note, I got to move the show Forte back to Wednesday nights because of yeah, well, my youngest is playing football, and that is crazy. By the way, it's the amount of practices they have for a 7-year-old is like a head scratcher for football for me.
Oh, bro.
4 days a week. 4 days a week.
Let me tell you. So my daughter's going to high school next year, and she's in band. They have pre-band camp.
Goodness,
pre-band camp, which is the week of her birthday, which is like July 21st through the 26th. They are at the school from, I believe it's 9 p.m. to 5. So my daughter, affectionately calls it her 9 to 5 that week. They have a week off, and then the week after that, they have what they call actual band camp. They are 9 to 8 p.m., 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday, that whole week.
That's wow. They are
serious about band, bro.
That's intense.
Yeah, the band she's in, the high school she's going to, they play in the Thanksgiving Day parade here in Detroit.
Yep.
So it's not for the faint of heart. They do competitions, they do all types of stuff. So she's definitely looking forward to it. I'm not looking forward to going downtown Detroit to stand in the cold during Thanksgiving to watch my daughter in the band. I'm not looking forward to that because who wants to be around that many people at that time of the day?
Yeah.
If you ever watch the Thanksgiving parade in your city in downtown, it's just imagine. It's crazy. But But yeah, when I saw that on the schedule, I was like, are y'all literally? I don't even work that many hours in a week. Y'all are doing crazy. 9 to 8. That's 11 hours. That's 11-hour days. 5 days in a row. Crazy, but she's looking forward to it though. But
yeah, wow. That's like I said, it's a job. You're right. Absolutely.
It's a job. It's literally a job.
Yeah. So moving BRAP back to Wednesday nights. I'm not sure if it's going to be 9 p.m. or 8 p.m. I think that also just depends on sports. So at the latest it'll be at 9 p.m. Yeah. But yeah, just a quick programming note. So next week BRAP will be back Wednesday night, probably at 8, because I don't think we have anything sports related. Like we're still doing baseball right now. We're still in baseball season, doing tournaments now after the regular season ended. Actually, Mooch has coined me. Has changed my name to Coach now. Crossfire. Really? Yeah. So
okay.
Yeah, because I'm always doing some sports stuff. So, but anyhow, Forte, thank you again, sir. Always great chatting up with you and catching up.
Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And please check out DPS Thursday nights and check us out next week Wednesday night, either at 8 or 9 p.m. On that note, we're out. Everyone, have a great rest of the weekend. We'll catch you next time.
Peace.